The Committee on Local Government, Pensions, and Elections will come to order. Alex, please take the roll.
Henderson.
Here.
Berg. You have a quorum.
We have established a quorum, and I make a motion that we go into executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. And we're in executive session. Okay, the first bill up will be, I move that we take up Senate Bill 1195. Do I have a second? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? And the ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. We've taken it up. This is my bill we heard last week dealing with surplus property. The substitute allows for the sale of surplus property that is valued at or below $500 without conduction of the auction. We told you last week that was going to be on there to try to keep all the different fire groups happy. They all seem to be happy with that at this point. So we do have a committee substitute ending in 02C, and I move that we adopt the substitute. Do I have a second? Is there any discussion on the substitute? Senator Beck.
Yeah, just so you and I have had several conversations on this. I think this is I'm going to vote to get it out of committee, but I think it needs some other things that possibly later on down the road. So you and I talked about it. I just want to throw that out there. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of adopting the substitute, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. The ayes have it. You've adopted the substitute. I now move that we vote Senate Bill 1195 with Senate committee substitute out of committee do pass. Do I have a second? Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Henderson.
Aye.
Berger.
By your vote of 6-0, you have executed out Senate Bill 1195. I now move that we take up Senate Bill 1094. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? And the ayes appear to have it. This is Senator Crawford's bill we heard last week dealing with bond issues and publication in newspapers. Senator Crawford, is there anything you would like to say?
Nothing specific. Happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Okay, seeing none. There is a substitute ending in 03C. I move that we adopt the substitute. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? And the ayes have it. I now move that we vote Senate Bill 1094 out of committee do pass. Do I have a second? Is there any discussion?
Just to clarify, that the sub is what I presented last week, so there is no change from there.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Henderson.
Aye.
Berger. Beck. Black. Bratton. Crawford. Aye. Nicola. Aye. Nuremberg. Aye. 6-0.
By your vote of 6 you have approved Senate Bill, do pass, Senate Bill 1094. I now move that we go out of executive session. Do I have a second? And all those in favor say aye. Aye. And we're out of executive session. We have 4 bills up for today, so it may take a little bit of time. We're going to try to move them along, and we may have some different chairmen because I'm also presenting in some other committees today. I thought Senator Berger was going to be here, so Senator Crawford, on this first one, would you mind chairing it? It's going to be Senator Black and I are going to present 1054 and 1057 together because we're going to roll them together then.
Will do. Just to clarify, this is Senate Bills 1054 and 1557. Is that correct? Got it. All right. Senators, whenever you're ready, you may proceed.
Okay, for the record, I am Mike Henderson, State Senator from the 3rd Senatorial District, presenting Senate Bill 1557, which is contribution refunds for non-invested employees. Current statute provides that any vested or non-vested employees of the state retirement systems, Mosers, or peers may request a refund of their retirement contributions along with any applicable interest. Senate Bill 1557 will require an automatic refund for non-vested employees whose total accumulated contributions and interest equal $1,000 or less, or another amount as permitted under federal law. This change is important because the number of employees in this category continues to grow. When the time comes to disperse these funds, plan administrators often face significant challenges locating farmer employees. In some cases, efforts can span decades, which kind of astounded me to hear that. Under Senate Bill 1557, if the retirement system follows the established procedures to locate the individual and is unsuccessful, the funds will be classified as abandoned property and transferred to the Missouri State Treasurer's Office as unclaimed property. This provision applies only to the specific group addressed in this legislation, non-vested members under the threshold amount. Additionally, neighboring states such as Indiana and Kansas have implemented similar systems, demonstrating that this approach is both practical and consistent with regional best practices. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions for this bill sponsor? Seeing none, do we want to go ahead and hear the next bill next?
Thank you. Senator Rusty Black, representing Northwest Missouri. Senate Bill 1054 works with our Missouri deferred comp plan that I believe everybody's setting in front of me are part of that plan. Currently, participants are automatically enrolled at 1% contribution rate. When we become employees, we're at 1%. But automatic annual increases are optional. Approximately 50% of Missouri deferred comp participants remain at that 1% contribution rate from when they originally enrolled. So 50% of us haven't made any changes. What would Senate Bill 1054 then do? Senate Bill 1054 establishes automatic incremental increases in deferred compensation contributions for participants. The increment is 0.5% annually with a 10% cap on automatic annual increases. Once above 10%, annual increases are optional but not automatic. Participants can still choose to opt out. Participants can still choose to opt out of these automatic increases, so you or I can make that choice. This legislation shores up the three-legged stool of pension, deferred comp, and Social Security, bolstering the income and retirement of participants. Automatic 0.5% annual increases strike a balance of increasing participants' contribution levels without prompting opt-outs. Senate Bill 1054 follows the lead of proven retirement plans in neighboring states. Missouri has a low automatic starting percentage at 1% of eligible pay. These automatic increases catch our employees up with national averages while maximizing participation. I have a few things in here that I thought would be good for you to hear. Again, I said when we start in Missouri, 1%. Other states, Indiana 2, Arkansas, Wyoming 3, Wisconsin 3 to 5, Georgia 5. Maximum rate ranges from 4 to 15. I think you pretty well understand what we're trying to do, is get us and our state employees to put a little bit more of their compensation into this plan to help them at retirement. So with that, I know there's experts behind me as well, or I believe they were going to be here today. But if anybody has questions of me, I would certainly answer those. And I can do some good on 1557 since I sit on the Mosers Board of Directors. along with Senator Buck. Between two of us, we got it covered.
Any questions? Senator Beck?
And just to be clear, this would be you would have to opt out of it, otherwise it would automatically happen.
You're automatically in. So when you and I, or whoever new legislator is or new employee, when you sign up, you have 1%. You get that receipt just like I do. We started at the same time, right? And it would have then, both of us are in our 10th year, so that would be 9.5s would have been added to that unless you or I, we had some reason that we wanted to say, no, I've got to stop here. You know, I've got this other thing going on at home and I can't afford to continue the increase. And then we would get hold of Mosier's, the Missouri Comp Plan, and say, I want to stop it. I'm at 3% right now. So.
And currently now, so I'm one of the 50% that's probably stuck at 1%. Right? But you have the option right now to put in more.
We do have the option, but you have to do the more labor than some of us do, including me. I'm one of those people, and I think whenever I quit my previous career, my wife and I were somewhere around 35% of my salary going into retirement savings plans. And there were a few days I wish we wouldn't have done that, but I just didn't get to buy an extra Coke that day.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I think the way we'll do this is anybody, let's go 1557, anybody to testify in support, and I guess if you're in favor of both, if you want to do that. Okay, so you can just put it on there. Come on, anybody to testify in support. Please come forward. Turn in your witness form, please.
Good morning, Michelle. I guess it's afternoon, right?
Yeah, it depends on where you are.
Yeah, that's all mine.
So, de minimis contributions and unclaimed property is where you'd like to start. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Rochelle Reeves. I am the General Counsel for the Missouri State Employees Retirement System. We have two members of our board here, one beside me, Senator Black, and then Senator Beck also. So they are mini experts, right? So I don't have a lot to add. I'm more able to answer questions and whatnot. What we're trying to do here is largely driven by a few different things. We have a staggering number of people who leave state employment and leave this contribution amounts behind. And as Senator Henderson mentioned, that money can sit there for decades, and that would be fine, except for they don't earn any interest over it while it sits there. And we are under an ongoing obligation to try and find these people. And there are only so many different ways you can find someone who doesn't want to find you or doesn't want to be found. And so at some point you become a refund shop. And so for example, I have our audited numbers from last year, and we have about, 38,000 people who are terminated and not vested, which means they're not accruing interest. They will be owed no benefit. We will have no future relationship with them. And of those 38,000 people, we have about 23,000 who are in this $0 to $1,000 category that the IRS says we can try to get them right now and get their money out to them. That is about $8 million, about $8 million. And those amounts have risen over the last few years. Of the total people who are terminated and non-vested that we owe money to, this is about 60% of them right now. And so if you may have concerns, well, who are these 24,000 people, which is, when I had our IT staff help me with some numbers recently, 5,200 of them have less than 1 month of service, right? So we can't go out and find their friends, we can't find them, they don't leave a lasting legacy for us to track down. 21,000 of them worked less than 6 months in our system, and 24,270 of them less than 24 months. So these are people who have a fleeting relationship, and then we, the system, are left basically with this lifetime, literally decades. The required minimum distribution age is 73. So right now, we are going to hold this money the entire time and try to find these people year in and year out, unless we figure out some way to get their money to them, back to them, that they may not know, frankly, that they gave and that they'd probably like to have back. The average age of these people right now is about 36 years, and about 89% of them are 25 years or older. So I don't know if those are helpful or convincing, but they're true. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Very good. Would you like me to talk about
Sure.
auto escalation?
Yes, while you're there, if you would, please.
Absolutely. So I don't know if you need to restate my name, but Rochelle Reeves, General Counsel at Mosers. In this instance, I think that what the senator testified to is accurate. Senator Beck had some questions about auto enrollment and opting out. Basically, the same way that you can opt out or change anything now would be true for this. It's the same system, it's the same setup. The only difference is that every year on your anniversary, you would roll up 1/2% for 20 years until you reach 10%. If you did anything at any time to change that or alter it, then you would be off the auto escalate trail. So you stay in control. It's just that this gives people a little bit of nudge that they need. I mean, most people, when they get to the end of it, even with the three-legged stool of the pension benefit, the deferred comp, and Social Security, they're really only replacing about 60 to 70% of their income, and their expenses are more than what they thought. So this helps people. It can help them stay out of social programs. It can help them, frankly, live more comfortably, live the life that they thought they were going to live after a lifetime of state service. So auto enrollment began in 2011. Auto escalation began in 2013. And as you heard, most people still are stuck at 1%. The median percent is 2%. So this can be the sort of nudge that people need to do what, frankly, they know they need to do and what they think is a good idea. They just, for whatever reason, no judgment, they just don't do it. So I don't really have anything else to say. Again, I'm happy to answer questions.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anybody else to testify in support? Turn in your witness form and begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Scott Simon with the MoDOT and Patrol Employees Retirement System. I'm here to testify in support of the provisions under 104-1091, which only reference the portion of the bill that affects the refund of employee contributions. I'll be brief. I'll echo the same sentiment that my colleague from Mosers did. We share a similar experience, only on a smaller scale. We have roughly 1,400 individuals that would fit this category. And as you said, Mr. Chairman, it's somewhat a matter of practicality in getting these accounts resolved earlier as opposed to later, because the longer they go, they are harder to find and connect with and make that payment, and we are required to do that. With that, I would take any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Anybody else to testify in support? Seeing none. Anybody in opposition? Seeing none. Informational purposes only. Seeing none. Senator Black.
Thank you all very much for your attention. Good bills.
Okay, and the next good bill we have up, Senator Black, we have your bill, Senate Bill 1551.
Okay, Senate Bill 1551 is a transient guest tax. This transient guest tax is identified as third-class city manager cities do not qualify for and are unable to place a transient guest tax on the ballot under existing statutes. The city in my district that brought this to me is worldwide famous, and they had worldwide visitors last summer, and they made sure they had them when they couldn't meet me. And that is Marceline, Missouri. Many of you know, childhood home of a guy named Walt Disney. The magic tree's still there. So this community come to myself and their state rep, Ms. McGaul, and ask if we would bring this forward. Senate Bill 1551 allows third-class cities with a city manager to impose a transient guest tax. I have cities in my district that would benefit greatly from the ability to collect tax revenues to support tourism to their cities, but have no statutory pathway to propose a new tax. This legislation simply allows these cities to put forward ballot language for the citizens to approve the measure. This is a narrow statutory fix that avoids special law and is for tourism only, with no diversions for unrelated purposes. This language has the blessing of MML, Missouri Municipal League, and it does include a 5% cap on the tax, so not above 5. And I know Marceline is represented behind me. There may be other people testify. With that, I would answer any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none. Anybody here to testify in support, please come forward. If you haven't, turn in your witness form and begin when you're ready.
Very good, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Richard Switzer. I'm the Marceline Industrial Development Authority Executive Director. Our city manager was predisposed this afternoon, so I'm filling in his stead. With me is Chris Ankeny. She'll talk a little bit later on, and she can introduce herself later on. As the senator said, we are a third-class city. And we do have one favorite son that continues to bring world visitors to our community. We have currently 7 transient rental businesses in our community. And with those 7 rental businesses, at 2 weeks, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm terribly sorry. 2 evenings a week, we would generate somewhere in the neighborhood of $15,000. Very, very minimal, but that's $15,000 we don't have today. And what we have accomplished in the last 25 years or more is simply putting forth the best show that we can when Walt Disney's fans come to town. So I'm going to let Chris go ahead and take the rest of this for right now.
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Ankeny. I am a small business owner on Main Street, USA. I am an officer for the Chamber of Commerce, and I am an officer for Downtown Marceline, which is affiliated with Missouri Main Street Connection in the state. So we have several marketing things that we have managed to pull together on our own. We have just recently, last fall, secured a billboard on Highway 36 eastbound, a couple of miles from our exit, and it's getting attention. We also are a charter member of a Highway 36 tourism group, and as such, we have been advertising in their Highway 36 magazine, The Way of American Genius. The Cherry Road Media has put out another magazine similar called The Corridor, and we have advertised in that. And we are advertising in Missouri Life's entertainment guide that they put free to people in airports in the state. So those are very important to us and get the word out about Marceline. We also have a website called visitmarceline.com. And if you go to that website, it's pretty much everything Marceline there. But if you hit the Press and Media tab, you'll be able to view a video that last summer Fox and Friends anchor Steve Ducey came to town, kicking off his Main Street program with Marceline as the first Main Street that they featured. And the Missouri Humanities Group has featured us as well in their Small Town Showcase series. We're very proud of those. The Walt Disney Hometown Museum opened in 2001 to coincide with Walt's 100th birthday celebration. It was held September 21, 22, and 23. While the attendance was impacted by the 9/11 tragedy, Marceline still welcomed over 30,000 visitors on that 3-day weekend. The Walt Disney Hometown Museum opened yesterday for the 2026 season. They are, as I said, 25 years old now. Last year, they had 30,000 plus visitors from 47 states and 13 countries. Richard?
The upcoming events for this year, we have several educational events coming on. We have a 2-day workshop, a place-based workshop, bringing University of Missouri writing program into Missouri educators. We have a 3-day workshop of youth civic engagement workshop writing program for middle and high school students. We have a 3-day Garner Holt animatronics STEAM camp for middle school students learning about animatronics by constructing animatronic birds. One evening, the elementary students in our community will be able to view a virtual tour of Garner Holt Animatronics production facility in Redlands, California. And I would let you know that Garner Holt is the foremost animatronics provider to all the things in the United States and the world. And if you ever saw Grogu on TV, he's the guy that did it. And he also owns a house in Marceline. He loved Marceline so well, he's moved from, or comes out and visits with us. In August, we'll have 12 Walt Disney Hometown Museum volunteers traveling to Anaheim, California for the biannual Walt Disney D23 convention. Our 20 by 40 foot booth will be located between the Disney Archives and the Walt Disney Family Museum display booths. The average attendance for this 3-day biannual event is approximately 90,000 avid Disney fans. Marceline's been going to this event for the last 5 conventions, so we've been 10 years into that event. Currently, our marketing and promotional activities are fueled by community volunteers, organizations, and private donations. The passage of the House Bill, I've got the wrong number in there, 2595, I think, is the Senate bill, will provide the financial services and resources we need for marketing to a much larger audience. We are Walt Disney's hometown. We call it small town America perfectly imagined. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Any questions for the witnesses? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming here.
Thank you.
Anybody else to testify in support? Please come forward.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Laura Holloway, Executive Director of the Missouri Municipal League. We appreciate this bill being brought forward and want to go on record in support. It's nice to have a few of our member communities that can put this forward together. I'm happy to help with any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Anybody else in support?
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Chris Schroer here on behalf of the City of Branson. And you may wonder, why does the City of Branson care about this? There may be another piece of legislation out there very similar that you might want to consider at a later date, combining them together, and now I've told you about it, so when I come back later, it won't be the first time you heard about it. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Anybody else to testify in support? Seeing none. Anybody in opposition? Seeing none. Informational purposes only. Seeing none. Senator Black.
Thank you very much, committee.
Okay, Carla's not here. So, the next bill up today will be Senate Bill 986 with Senator Brown. Please begin when you're ready.
For the record, I am State Senator Ben Brown of the 26th District, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for the opportunity to present Senate Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 986. In 2024, the voters of the state approved Amendment 7, which enshrined in our Constitution that only U.S. citizens should have the right to vote in our elections. This measure was met with overwhelming bipartisan approval. The people of the state have made it clear where they stand on this issue, and it is now incumbent upon us to ensure that we follow through on this mandate and that it is enforced. It is for this reason that I filed Senate Bill 986. This bill creates a requirement to provide documentary proof of citizenship when registering to vote. Documentary proof of citizenship is defined in the bill and reflects the requirements set forth in the Real ID Act of 2005, but also includes additional means of proving citizenship in order to mitigate any burden that could potentially be placed on those who are qualified but not yet registered to participate in our elections. To this end, I made additional changes to this year's version so that even if a person doesn't have access to any of the listed documents, they could still be verified. The added language states, when processing a voter registration application, The election authority shall use all available resources to verify the applicant is a citizen of the United States, including the relevant information from the following. And it lists off the Department of Revenue's electronic database, the U.S. Social Security Administration database, the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services Systematic Alien Verification for Entitlements Program, that one's a mouthful, any other federal, state, or political subdivision database, and any other database relating to voter registration to which the election authority has it or is granted access. To facilitate this process, the bill also states that to the extent allowed under applicable law, the election authority shall enter into agreements with entities described on page 8 in order to allow them to request information relating to verification of individual citizenship status. These include the Department of Revenue, the U.S. Social Security Administration, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Systematic Alien Verification for Entitlements Program, a National Association for Public Health Statistics and Information Systems Electronic Verification of Vital Events System, or similar statewide database. I also took precautions to ensure this bill was only applicable to new registrants and would not require those already registered or those who moved to a different county to have to provide additional documentation in order to simply maintain the registration status they already had. At the end of the registration process, if someone's citizenship could not be verified, they would then receive a notification in writing. The notification would state that they could only be registered as a federal-only voter, meaning that they could still vote in all federal elections but could not vote in state and local ones. It would also provide instructions on how to submit documentary proof of citizenship in order to be classified as a fully verified voter rather than a federal-only voter. Last year, there were also concerns expressed over potentially ending up in a complicated bifurcated system similar to what they had in Arizona with two separate voter registration forms, one for federal only, which requires no proof of citizenship, and one which would include all state, local, and federal elections, which would require proof of citizenship. In order to simplify the process, I utilized a method borrowed from a provision on a similar bill in Texas. It essentially would designate federal-only voters as a sub-precinct. Rather than creating a bifurcated voter roll, you would simply add a field to the voter registration database that designates whether the voter is federal-only or a fully verified voter. Federal-only voters would only be qualified to vote in federal elections, so any votes cast towards any state or local candidate or ballot measure would not be counted. Ballots cast by a federal-only voter would be treated in the same manner as a provisional ballot, and the voter would still have until the close of the polling place to provide documentary proof of citizenship. If proof of citizenship is provided, then all votes cast on that voter's ballot shall be counted, and the election authority would update the voter's registration record as a verified voter. It also contains a few common sense provisions to aid in the maintenance of our existing voter rolls. For instance, it would require the clerk of each circuit to transmit a monthly list of all people who identified themselves as not being a U.S. citizen in order to disqualify themselves from jury duty. The proof of citizenship requirement has already been passed in 9 other states, including Mississippi, New Hampshire, Ohio, Louisiana, Arizona, New Hampshire, Kansas, Alabama, and Georgia. Considering the mandate that we were given by the voters with the overwhelming approval of Amendment 7, I believe we have the responsibility to ensure that this policy is enforced and that the will of the voters is upheld. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for the sponsor? Senator Snurdenberg.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Senator.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing? Okay, taking a look at a few of these, let's start with, so if the election authority verifies citizenship status with the documents that you list in your bill, why do they also need to check DOR tax records?
So that would be in the event. So say someone didn't have a copy of their birth certificate or something like that. That just allows them to use any of these other databases. So if someone didn't bring in physical proof, they could still be verified without that physical proof.
Okay, and DOR is willing to enter into such agreements?
Well, I haven't spoken with DOR directly, but you know, That would have to be something that would be worked out between the Secretary of State's office and Department of Revenue.
Okay. Another provision of your bill requires that election authorities forward a rejected application to local law enforcement.
In the instance, if there was a case where someone was a non-citizen that was trying to apply for full voting privileges, it allows them to do that.
But it's a shall. They shall send the rejected applications. It's not a may. You have a shall. It's a mandate that they have to send that to law enforcement.
Well, yeah, if you're trying to register to vote illegally, that is a violation of law.
Okay. Let's go to some of the federal-only provisions that you have in here. Do you know the fiscal impact of the federal-only provisions that you've listed out in your bill?
The fiscal impact? I do not off the top of my head.
Okay. Other privacy concerns that I see in your bill concern the list of non-citizens being sent to the Secretary of State every single month by the Circuit Court. Is that correct?
Yeah, what would be your concern with that?
So privacy concerns, again, so simply non-citizens, you have several different provisions, but you were saying that that has to be sent by the Circuit Court to the Secretary of State every single month, correct?
Yes.
And so that would be a list that's unshinable. And again, Senator, you're well aware of what's happening across our nation. I think the last thing we need are folks just being targeted because their name appears on a list. And so that's certainly a concern there as well.
Well, Senator, I'd be happy to work with you and anyone else if there's some way that we could embed some kind of privacy protections there to ensure that that list couldn't be misused.
Okay. And you said that there are now, how many states that have similar systems in place now?
9.
There's 9. Okay. Do we have any, I'm just curious, are there any counties that use some sort of similar process that you've laid out in your bill currently in the state?
Oh, there are examples. So right now, for instance, if somebody just moved counties or they're from somewhere else, there is a federal only form I believe that exists. I just believe it's rarely used based on the conversation with my own county's clerk over the weekend.
Okay. Well, look forward to listening to the testimony from folks who are here today. And obviously, I have some concerns as I go through this bill. I hope this is something that we can work on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Any other questions for this witness? Seeing none. Okay, how many people are here to testify in support? Okay, how many in opposition? Just trying to get an idea of the time. Okay, so the first one in support, please come forward. Please fill out a witness form and begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I'm Chad Ennis. I'm Vice President of the Honest Elections Project Action. We're a nonprofit entity dedicated to defending the right of every American to vote in free and honest elections. Our motto is easy to vote, hard to cheat. This bill requires verification of United States citizenship for every new registrant. And I want to take you a little bit to say non-citizen voting is real. This is a problem. Just last year, Secretary Hoskins found a Jackson County resident who was registered to vote and actually voted in the November 2024 election. A single vote may not sound like a big deal, but since 2023, Missouri has had 16 elections that were either tied or within one vote. So one vote does make a difference. Nationally, on that same line, the Public Interest Legal Foundation has cataloged 1,351 races that ended in ties and 517 decided by one vote. So every vote matters. We've seen other states take action in this realm. Ohio, for instance, identified 597 voters who were on the Ohio voter rolls who were non-citizens, and 138 of those appeared to have actually voted and were referred to their Attorney General. Similarly, in Virginia, in 2024, they removed 1,600 non-citizens from their rolls. And that was actually a fight that went all the way to the Supreme Court that blessed what Virginia was doing to clean their voter rolls. In 2025, also in June, Texas opened investigations into 33 potential non-citizens who'd voted in 2024 election, and in October of that year, they identified 2,700 potential non-citizens that were registered. That's just a small sample, 3 states, of what's been found when you look. And so every single illegal vote dilutes the vote of a person. I can talk in detail on the provisions of this bill and why each of them are important, but I think the most important thing for you to understand is because it's weird that there's this federal-only verified voter system. That's caused by, as a lot of our problems are, the federal government. In the NVRA, they created this federal form for voter registration, and the federal form simply requires a checkbox affirmation and signature that you're a citizen. Some people just don't read the form and sign, not knowing, innocent mistakes, these kinds of things. But the Arizona tried a few years ago to not accept the federal form. And actually, the case went all the way to the Supreme Court. And in Intertribal Council versus Arizona, the court said you have to take the federal form, and this state legislature cannot add any provisions to it. So in Missouri, you guys are stuck with taking the federal form with just the affirmation. It's not a huge percentage of your voter registrations. I don't know the number in Missouri. I wasn't able to pull it, but I know in states like Texas, it's been about 15% come through the federal form. It's not too many, but it's a significant number. So when that federal form comes in, I think a good thing about this bill is at first you don't even bother the voter. You say, hey, can we run it through the databases that Senator Brown went through? Can we verify this person is a citizen? We'll mark it on the list and then we're done. We can move on. But when you can't verify that voter, for whatever reason, they're not responding or they don't show up in the databases, which we have seen, then since you have to take the form, you have to let them register, but you can make them a federal-only voter because the federal laws only go to federal elections. I think another thing is important that this is, and Senator Brown mentioned it, but this doesn't create a bifurcated voter system, voter rolls, or anything. It will simply require the databases that contain voter registrations to have an extra field that says federal only or verified voter, and then the corresponding precinct to put them in the right place so they get the right ballot style. This bill is a great bill to give Missouri citizens a system they can trust, and they can know going forward that there aren't going to be non-citizens on the voter rolls. And with that, I'll take any questions y'all have.
Questions for this witness? Senator Nuremberg.
Thank you. Just very briefly, what's the name of your organization again?
Honest Elections Project Action.
Okay, and where are you based?
I'm based in Austin.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none. Next up, in favor of Senate Bill 986.
Thank you, members of the committee. My name is Chandra Hendren, and I represent Heritage Action, a national grassroots organization with conservative activists nationwide, including many Missourians. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of SB 986. We appreciate Senator Brown introducing the bill. Free and fair elections are the bedrock of our republic, and every citizen should know that their vote was cast and counted one time. And I have absolute confidence that in Missouri, as was stated earlier, it is easy to vote and hard to cheat. SB 986 provides a common-sense approach to our election process, as well as ensures confidence in election results by requiring documentary proof of citizenship when registering to vote and keeping our voting records accurate. Requiring documentary proof of citizenship when registering to vote is a safeguard that makes sense and discourages cheating while protecting those who may not be eligible to vote from violating the law. Keeping our voting records updated and accurate is a smart and logical step to take to ensure the integrity of our elections. Our nation was built on the principle of consent of the governed. One citizen, one vote. This bill ensures confidence in our election process and election results. Heritage Action urges you to pass SB 986. Thank you.
Any questions of this witness? Senator Beck.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Who did you say you're representing?
Heritage Action.
Heritage Action, okay. And where are you located?
The organization's based out of Washington, D.C., but I live
Washington,
here in
D.C.
Kansas City.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of this witness? Thank you for testifying.
Thank you.
Anyone testifying in opposition to, please come forward. Make sure you fill out a witness form, please.
Good morning, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me to testify today. My name is Denise Lieberman. I'm the Director and General Counsel of the Missouri Voter Protection Coalition. We're Missouri's nonpartisan state voting rights table. We work to ensure that voting is free, fair, and accessible for all Missourians. And we are located here in Missouri and made up entirely of Missouri citizens. We're in opposition to Senate Bill 986, which would require documentary proof of citizenship to register to vote. I want to take a moment. I'm going to make some points that are distinct from my written testimony, which is being submitted here. And I do want to first start by thanking Senator Brown for taking some of the concerns that we raised on this bill last year into consideration. Unfortunately, the measure still falls short, and that is why we're here today in opposition. First off, I want to refer to the federal law that the first witness referenced, the National Voter Registration Act, which does require the state of Missouri to use the federal and accept the federal voter registration form, which does not currently require proof of citizenship. Accordingly, a law that would require proof of citizenship from all Missourians would violate the National Voter Registration Act. The only way to do that is to have two separate systems, one that is for voters who are eligible to vote in federal elections who might not have presented proof of citizenship, and those eligible to vote in state elections who have. And while I appreciate, since we did talk about this last year, I think that's a very creative attempt to add the additional column saying which one folks are only eligible under federal law. It's still two separate voter registration lists, no matter how you cut it. You say Missouri, I say Missouri. I think it's the same thing. It's still two different lists of eligible voters. And as a practical matter, when that list shows up at the polling place for poll workers to check against, what we know from other states that have had to segregate state eligible voters under proof of citizenship laws with federal, that there are a lot of errors. Texas, for example, there were ultimately 300,000, just shy of 300,000 voters that were mistakenly thought to be ineligible to vote under state elections because they were eligible under federal elections. Turns out, though, they were in fact citizens and eligible to vote. And these errors have been rampant across the states that have attempted this experiment in the past. And even when attempting to compare data lists against other federal databases, and I appreciate that your bill does that as well, currently already, though, keep in mind, Missouri clerks and election authorities already have access to the Social Security Administration database. They already have access to Department of Revenue databases. In fact, that is those and the other databases that we listed are the ones that local election authorities have to match voter applicant data against to determine their eligibility to get on the rolls in the first place. What is a truth that we cannot ignore is that there simply is no database of United States citizens in the United States of America. And that is partially what makes this problematic. And even when attempting to try and use things like the SAVE database, as Secretary Hoskins did back in the fall, we saw numerous errors come out of that. So much so that Missouri's clerks and election authorities sent a letter to all of you, to members of leadership of the legislature, in a December letter to former Speaker Patterson, explaining these errors. And even then, what you saw is using those in about the dozen or so states that tried this endeavor this past fall, only 0.01% came up as potential non-citizens. And that's before you even get to if they voted. What we do know, though, and the data on this is clear, that for the very, very minuscule 0.01% of individuals on voter rolls who might have questions about citizenship, they are almost exclusively due to error outside of the voter's control. For example, an applicant who checks, "No, I'm not a U.S. citizen," on a registration form, the clerk shouldn't process that form. Or somebody who gets a driver's license, it's perfectly legal for non-citizens to get driver's licenses, whose information then gets sort of automatically sent without sort of a further check on citizenship at the DMV. And this bill, by flagging even those folks who might be listed due to no fault of their own for criminal prosecution, is quite concerning, as is the requirement that the local clerk of court send monthly a list of people who said they weren't citizens for purposes of jury service. What we know from Secretary of State Hoskins' failed attempt at culling through the SAVE database this past fall and giving that list to the clerks is that it's just not accurate because it's not being done contemporaneously. The one thing that is different with what the clerks do is they search these databases contemporaneously. Sending a list of people who weren't eligible for jury duty last month doesn't tell us their citizenship status this month. And it changes because this is a moving target. And of course, finally, our clerks and election authorities already do a really good job of personally hand sorting voter registrations, running them against these existing databases, and only placing those whose eligibility they can quantify onto the voter rolls, or sending them a letter then saying what further needs to happen. This is a solution in search of a problem. And I will also say that this bill fails additionally, and I'll finish up in this part, by placing the onus on the voter. I know that your intent is to say, well, the LEAs go through and look through these databases first, but that's not what this bill says. The bill says and puts the onus on the applicant to themselves present that documentary proof of citizenship and affords these database searches as a secondary attempt to try and identify citizenship. But because we have no full database of United States citizens, that falls short too. And what we know is that people do change their registrations a lot. I appreciate that you have exempted people who are already registered to vote from this requirement. The Congress's version of this bill, the SAVE Act, does not. But what we know is that even with that, some 40% of Americans have to re-register every federal election cycle. And very few do so in person or in a place where they're able to present documents like a certified birth certificate or U.S. passport. Documents that over 9% of voting eligible United States citizens don't have. Over half of United States citizens, or approximately half of U.S. citizens, don't have a passport. And for lower income communities of color, that number's much higher. 2/3 of African American U.S. citizens do not have a valid passport. Consider women whose names have changed since birth. 69 million female citizens nationwide don't have a birth certificate that comports with their current legal name. Think about people whose documents are lost or destroyed or stolen, just people displaced by fires, floods, natural disasters. Consider the thousands in my hometown of St. Louis, Missouri, who were displaced after last year's Category 4 tornadoes, whose documents may simply have been destroyed in the process. And for those who need to get underlying documents from other states, because they weren't born here or because they weren't married in the state of Missouri, each of those states has its own bureaucratic slew of unique requirements and costs associated with getting those underlying documents. A number even require people to provide a photo ID in order to get a certified copy of their birth certificate. And for those whose underlying documents have errors or even just typos or misspellings, this can cause voters to have to go through an onerous, lengthy, and expensive process of even getting a court-ordered legal name change simply to allow those names to match up. And this is not speculation, because Missouri's experiment with strict photo ID requirements to vote has many of those same underlying requirements of getting those birth certificates and having those documents match up. And for a non-frivolous and statistically significant portion of Missouri's voters, this becomes a hardship that can be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to overcome. And this is after they've already attested under penalty of perjury to their citizenship status in a state that assesses voter registration applications against these databases and imposes very severe penalties, including loss of voting rights for life for anybody who does vote who is ineligible to do so. We have more data and statistics in our written testimony, but for these reasons, we respectfully request the committee to vote down Senate Bill 986.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions for this witness? Seeing none, next up in opposition. And be mindful of the time. We have two more bills after this one, and we're on a time, we have a hard stop, so be mindful of the time, please, or we'll have to start timing.
Good afternoon. My name is Kay Park, and I'm here representing the League of Women Voters of Missouri. And I'm not going to repeat half of what Denise said because she made a lot of the same points I would like to, but I did want to say that this would really depress voter participation by making it much more difficult to register to vote by requiring in-person registration, eliminating online and third-party voter registration. And I can tell you for a fact, one of the things the League of Women Voters does is goes to high schools and goes to colleges and registers these kids to vote. And if they don't do it on their phone or on the iPad that we bring along with us, they're not going to bother. I mean, you're going to lose a lot of young voters with this kind of thing, especially because this applies to new voters. And as already was said before, there's a really small number of non-citizens who try to register to vote and then go ahead and vote because of the penalties involved. And now, if they try to do that, I mean, the ICE is right there watching. So there's a very small number, actually, and it's estimated to be far less than 1% that actually try to register to vote who are non-citizens. And if you look at the SAVE Act, which I think that this is somewhat formed after, when you look at the SAVE Act, they're talking about 21 million citizens who are citizens eligible to vote would be off the rolls if that went through. And if you look at that number and compare it to the actual population of citizens in the United States, that comes out to 6% of the voters. So if you're disqualifying 6% to catch that 1%, it's totally disproportionate. You're making far fewer people able to vote who should be able to vote. And also, by having this two-tiered thing, I think that would make it very complicated for people to understand when they go to vote. And if this passes, a lot of people don't pay attention to these legislations. They're going to get to the polls and they won't realize, oh my goodness, I can only vote in the federal elections. You know, I didn't know. You know, I think you're going to get a lot of confusion there. And the other thing is that we do naturalization ceremonies here in St. Louis at least once a week, sometimes several times a week, and that's just in St. Louis. Those happen in Kansas City. Those happen in a lot of different cities. And so 1 week to the next, somebody might not have been a citizen last week, and then this week they are, which really jeopardizes when you're looking at those rolls for people who last week were not citizens and could not be on a jury. So I'm asking you to defend the voters out there who are able to vote legitimately and to please oppose this bill, SB 986.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions for this witness? Seeing none, next up in opposition.
Thank you.
My name's David Lee Brush. I'm with the Missouri Equity Education Partnership. Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing us to testify. The previous two speakers have hit all the points that we were going to hit, but I would like to just give you a real-world example. I'm born in Illinois, and Illinois does not centralize their vital records. Not all of them. Some counties are, some counties aren't. In order for me to get the documentation required for my real ID recently, because I waited the last minute out of, I don't know, protest, I had to drive 6 hours round trip to be able to get my birth certificate in a timely manner, pay $10 per copy for the raised certificate, and that was a full day out of work and 6 hours gasoline. I had to drive here to Jeff City because I was married here in Cole County to get a copy of both of my marriage certificates because I got a do-over, and I then had to pay another $15 to get a divorce decree. There is already confusion in the state whether you need a divorce decree or not, if your name is changed or not. And even in my own county, I got 3 different answers from 3 different licensing bureaus to get my real ID. So I had it and paid $15. The total cost was 10 and a half hours, 620 miles, and $43 after losing $168 in lost wages for having to go there. This bill is confusing to the average person. My head hurts from just trying to figure out what was being said in this hearing. I can't imagine voters all over the state having to do these things, born all over the country. And furthermore, it just seems like every day there's another hoop that we have to jump through to be able to get a constitutional right guaranteed by the 15th Amendment that says nothing shall abridge the right to vote. And this sure as heck seems like an abridgment to me. And the hoops keep a-moving. So we're against this bill. Thank you.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, next up in opposition. And just, how many more? Any others? Okay.
Madam Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Kelvin Simmons. I am a contract lobbyist with the Health Forward Foundation of Kansas City. We stand in opposition of the bill. I believe that all of the witnesses before have basically laid out all of the positions that we would have, and so if there are any questions, I'd stand for questions.
Thank you. Questions? Seeing none, next up in opposition.
Good afternoon, Senator Crawford and Senator Nicola. My name is Chris Schroer. I am here on behalf of the Missouri Association of County Clerks and Election Authorities. I want to first recognize that Senator Brown is always willing to work with our election authorities, and we always have great conversations, and we will continue to do so on this piece of legislation due to time constraints with what's on the agenda. I just want to point out one thing from a standpoint of administering the elections. We will always follow the law and whatever the legislature and the governor and whatever the law of the land in the state of Missouri would be. It will be very challenging with the way the bill is drafted, specifically to how, once you have a federal election-only voter, to tabulate those votes, to ignore if they voted provisionally on the rest of the statewide and local issues. There's no way to turn that on or off. I think you run into a potential problem with a little bit of the security surrounding our elections if you're trying to figure that out. I just don't know that we have those capabilities without probably a significant infrastructure investment to do that. And even then, I just don't know if that exists. But I understand what he's trying to do with that. We will follow the law, whatever that ends up being. But that is a concern just from an administrative standpoint. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you. Final one in opposition, I believe.
Good afternoon. My name is Tyler Travers, registered lobbyist here today on behalf of the Missouri chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union. Just respectfully registering opposition to this. One of the previous witnesses spoke personally about having name changes on a birth certificate and those sort of cumbersome details. You know, if you're trying to get a passport to go on vacation, it can take time and cost money, and we just think it's too cumbersome, so we'll be in opposition to this.
Thank you. Questions for this witness? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Anyone else in opposition? Seeing none. Anyone here for informational purposes only? Seeing one.
No, I'm actually here in support because I think it skipped
from support to...
No, actually, we thought we had all the supports.
Okay. I didn't-
Yeah, we asked for a rate of show of hands, and I think we just saw a couple of
I'm just
hands.
going to leave this, want to go on record for Liberty Link, Missouri. And I think the privilege of voting sometimes does require a little bit of extra trouble. I think it's a very sacred privilege that we have, and I appreciate Senator Brown for going to all the work and trouble that he did to tighten up the security of our, because at least 80% of the American people, which I think would also translate into Missourians, want to show proof of citizenship. So thank you. So sorry for the mess up. I didn't hear. I was listening. I thought I was listening.
Questions for the witness? Seeing none. One more time, informational purposes only. Seeing none, this will, Senator, any final comments?
Yeah, to a couple of the points made previously. There was a reference to Texas using the federal database that resulted in the red flagging of people that, by mistake, that should have been verified voters. I just need to reiterate that this does not address those that are already on our voter rolls. This would only be for new applicants. So a scenario like that just would not play out based on the language that's in this bill here. The other point that, there's pushback on the clerks submitting the list of those that use being a non-citizen as an excuse to get out of jury duty. And what if before the next month, they had become a citizen? Well, in that case, they would have documentation, their U.S. naturalization documents, or even just the number of that certificate is one of the methods that can be used to prove your citizenship, where you would then be classified as a verified voter and you would be on the roll. So that situation just simply wouldn't play out either. So just wanted to point out those two things. There's another reference to someone referenced the Federal SAVE Act and said that 6% of the voters would be removed to catch 1%. This isn't removing anyone from the rolls. This is just simply trying to catch people that shouldn't be a verified voter on the way in. So just wanted to make that clear distinction there.
Thank you, and this will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 986. The next bill we will hear is Senator May, Senate Bill 943. Senator, whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Senator Carla May, representing the 4th Senatorial District. I present to you today Senate Bill 943 for your consideration. This bill will require any person or entity not residing in Missouri that owns property found to be in violation of code or ordinance would be subject to a $2,000 civil fine per violation, in addition to any other penalties or costs associated with abatement. This bill gives communities more tools to address properties that fall into despair or violate local codes, helping curb blight that depreciates neighborhood value and safety. If the nuisance conditions are not abated within a year and civil fines remain unpaid after 2 years, the property may be sold by the taxing jurisdiction to satisfy abatement costs and fines. Creating consistent enforcement standards improves public safety, enhances quality of life, and promotes stable, thriving communities across Missouri. And with that, Madam Chair, I'm open for any questions, and we do have the support of the city in my district.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none. Anyone here to testify in favor of Senate Bill 943?
Once again, good afternoon, Senator Crawford and Senator Nicola. Chris Schroer here on behalf of the City of Independence. I do not believe we are currently in the legislation I know the city has visited with Senator Nicole about potentially adding this, adding the city of Independence. We're the 5th largest city in the state of Missouri. We would very much appreciate being able to use this tool. We've got about 36% of our dangerous buildings are by out-of-state owners, and half of those are past the length of time that is in the senator's legislation, so this could be an effective tool right away for us, and we'd love to be able to utilize it.
Questions for the witness? Seeing none, anyone else here to testify in favor of Senate Bill 943? Seeing none, anyone here to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 943? Seeing none, anyone here for informational purposes only for Senate Bill 943? Seeing none, Senator, any final comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. This will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill. This will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 943. And next up, Senator Schroer, Senate Bill 1342. Senator, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Senator Schroer, Senate District 2, presenting Senate Bill 1342. This is my 4th hearing of the day, but my first bill that I'm presenting, so thank you for saving the best for last. I know we've got some witnesses here, and I've passed around a packet of emails. We've got about 30-plus emails, and they keep coming in. So I'll have to send that to the members as well on why Senate Bill 1342, on the annexation amendments that we have within this bill. They're very important. We've seen in the unincorporated areas in my district how some of these cities are utilizing the very broad and subjective language that we currently have in statute to annex certain areas in, leaving a lot of the questions to be unanswered by the residents. A lot of difficulty in some of the rural areas with infrastructure issues already, unsafe roadways that would triple the wear and tear on our roads if we continue utilizing the law as it is written. So I'm working on a substitute that makes some of the clarifications even tighter as we kind of go through several different scenarios, and there's a House companion that's passed, several issues that have been brought up in that committee as well. But with that, and knowing that we have several witnesses here in a short period of time, I will close and open up to any questions.
Questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none, first up in favor of Senate Bill 1342, please come forward.
Be real quick.
Good afternoon, Tom Dempsey, Madam Chairwoman, Senators, Senator. Registered lobbyist for St. Charles County. We want to go on record in support of the legislation. Be good for St. Charles County. Thank you.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, next up in favor.
Good afternoon. My name is Helen Proctor, too. I live at number 2 Chabanel Drive. I come today speaking regarding the annexation laws. I speak with a story about my aunt and uncle, who started a farm in Creve Coeur. Because of development increased taxation, they were basically pushed further west and relocated to what is to become Chesterfield. I'm sure annexation was at play in that development. Chesterfield was developed, again with annexation and increased taxation. They were once again pushed further west to St. Charles County. Their third farm, thankfully to my uncle, Jack Bromelsick, is now county-owned Bromelsick Park. This serves as a buffer to many around us. My story changes to my story, and many of us here. We bought our properties with the promise of following the rules of the county, 3 to 5 acre or larger sized lots. This was for most of us to get away from the crowded developments of St. Louis County. We thought we were protected by the plan that had been put in place. We were following the rules and the plan. The annexations and land grabs that are occurring with the current laws are putting all of us existing owners at risk, not for anything that we have done wrong or for precautions that we did not take. We followed the plan. The cities around us are trying to jump around and grab parcels to enlarge their boundaries without any consideration of the existing population and the inherent promises on which they base their purchases and investments. Not just monetary investments, but emotional ties and bonds. I am tied to this community, as are so many of us. We don't want to move further west. The enlarged cities are not investing in infrastructure improvements, nor are they addressing the shortfalls to the budgets that the new developments will be placing on the taxpayers, as in us. I speak to unsafe roads and traffic,
trap fire protection, ambulance, police, and emergency personnel, excuse me, snow removal, etc. As an example, with one snowstorm in 2025, our highway was not cleared for 5 days, there was no mail for 10 days, and no school for over a week. And this was before the additional approved several hundred homes are built with no scheduled infrastructure improvements anytime in our future. At this time, these inconsistent laws are not protecting us. They need to be modified and made consistent with each other. They need to protect the people who have invested so many aspects of their lives here. It is unfair for the last to sell to ruin what the others have made possible. The laws need to protect the community, not the developer's income. Back to my uncle. I remember him talking about selling the farm to have it become the park. He stressed that the park was to be one that would be for the average person, not commercial. He wanted the everyday person to be able to come, walk the green space, enjoy nature, not see development everywhere you look. That is also how our county was being developed and what the master plan had envisioned. These poorly worded annexation laws are preventing any of that from remaining in place and are ruining what St. Charles County and other counties have in place. Please make these laws consistent and fair to all of us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Questions to the witness? Seeing none, next up in favor. Just a show of hands, how many more in favor? And how many in opposition? Okay, we're going to have to, we need to be out of this room at 3:30, so if you can keep your comments succinct and don't repeat, that'd be great. Thank you.
My name is Michael Malutnak, and I support the bill.
That was very succinct. Thank you. Did you have any questions? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Brandy Malutnak, and I support the bill.
Wow, you guys, usually they ignore me when I say that. Next up in favor. And make sure if you did not fill out a witness form that you do so. Hi, I'm Laura Bissonette, and I'm in support of this bill. Thank you. I'm amazed. Thank you for testimony. Next up in favor.
Hello, Defiance, Missouri. Philip Bissonette. I want to thank Senator Schroer for addressing this. This is a critical issue for us. I'm going to save you almost as much time. We need this to protect our rural lifestyle. The current laws and what these cities are doing is not correct. We have a citizen-funded lawsuit against one of them right now for their illegal annexation. We need to get this fixed. Please support this.
Thank you. Next up in favor.
Yes, I did.
Good afternoon, Randy Skiba. I'm a resident of rural St. Charles. Phil didn't get the memo, but I did. I'm in support of Mr. Schroer's bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up in favor. Seeing none, first up in opposition to 1342.
Madam Chair, member of the committee, my name is Richard Sheets with the Missouri Municipal League, and we do have some concerns about Senate Bill 1342. I think already we have some pretty stringent annexation laws. The legislature made some major changes a number of years ago and really separated the process into two components. And it's kind of addressed in this bill. The first part in 71012 is the owner-initiated annexation, and that's where the property owners petition the city to be annexed. And then there's a process of public hearings and appeal processes that go with that. So it's really, that first part's really a property owner's provision. The second part is 71015, and that's the municipal initiated process, how the city initiates an annexation. And I can tell you, I can't recall the last time a city has used the initiated process. It's a very difficult process. There's a dual election. There's a court process where the city has to get that approved. So cities have relied on property owners wanting to come into the city for municipal services and for those other reasons to expand their boundaries. So I think this is really limiting the citizens and the property owners' ability and rights
and we certainly disagree with that and oppose this bill. I'll try to answer any questions.
Questions? Seeing none, next up in opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Becca Eichelberger with the Missouri Association of Municipal Utilities, and we would like to go respectfully on record in opposition to the bill. Some of these pieces of this bill do pose some complications for utilities on some territorial agreements and some service agreements that we have across the state. Definitely for electric, for gas, and definitely for water and sewer. But of course, we are happy to work with the sponsor through these issues.
Thank you. Questions? Seeing none. Anyone else to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 1342? Seeing none. Anyone here for informational purposes for Senate Bill 1342? Seeing none. Senator, any final comments?
That's it. Thank you.
This will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 1342, and we are adjourned.